Hello friends, welcome you all to the columns analysis and Hindu editorial analysis section of this English newspaper section. Here we are not going to continue this series every day, but here I will try to cover as many important articles and editorials possible so that you will have this repository of all this data that you can access while going for the examination. Here my main purpose shall be to provide you a picturesque presentation of every data that we are going to discuss over here. Now see. First is about peaceful possibilities. Basically this editorial, this column, it talks about Panchayat elections in Jammu and Kashmir, and they are expecting that these Panchayat elections in Jammu and Kashmir can lead to participatory politics and meaningful dialogue that they are expecting since the end of statehood given to Jammu and Kashmir and giving them this particular union territory status. Now here certain words I have marked. First one, it is a violence-free election is necessary but not sufficient for a vibrant democracy. Now, why I have underlined these things? I will be discussing the context and the content of a column later on. Here I will be giving you just important points or important hints from the column. Now, first it talks about a violence-free election is necessary but not sufficient for vibrant democracy. First point. National integration is important, but here one important thing, you have to focus on two important aspects, or you have to balance two important aspects. You have to balance between preserving national integrity and honoring region's identity. Here it is being said that the choices that are given before the people of Jammu and Kashmir must not be framed as binary macabre violence of Islamist separatism and dehumanizing submission of their cultural identity to authoritarian ultranationalism. This is important aspect. On this part you could get essay. Now, government must encourage the widest voter participation to give legality to the Panchayat elections. Here, important is that all that might be said would not be acceptable or desirable. This is important. But it is important, this line can be used in your conclusion, but meaningful dialogue is essential and elections are the best way to open up peaceful possibilities. Now, let's see what this article says. Now, what is the context? There are local body elections are being conducted in Jammu and Kashmir in recent days. Now, this could be an opportunity to open a new political dialogue in the union territory, particularly on the question of restoring statehood. This is the important question that every person in Jammu and Kashmir is asking center and state governments. Now, what is the significance of Panchayat Raj elections? It is the first democratic exercise that will be held since Centre revoked Jammu and Kashmir's special status and reorganized it into two union territories in August 2019. Panchayat Raj elections are scheduled to be held in 8 phases beginning from November 28. Then, it is for the first time in the constitutional history that this part of India will have entire 73rd constitutional amendment coming into operation. That's why the second part you can put in your answer. In October, the UT administration amended Panchayat Raj Act for Jammu and Kashmir, and they provided for district development council in each district and established 3-tier Panchayat Raj structure in each district. Alongside the election of 280 district development councils, there will be by-elections for around 12,000 Panchayat seats and over 230 urban body seats will also take place. No need to remember this factual data, it is given just for your information. Then, what is expected? It is expected that there should be peaceful participatory election in a troubled region. It can be the most forceful demonstration of resilience of Indian democracy. That's why these elections are very, very important. It is for this reason that elections are a target for those who believe that only violence can achieve popular aspirations in Kashmir Valley, and to disrupt the elections and show cause were naturalized last week. Now, how we can strive for how we can achieve meaningful democracy? First, violence-free election is very, very important, but it is not sufficient for a vibrant democracy. Now here, what BJP or political party is doing, BJP's strict political posturing is showing that all its political opponent as anti-national and separatist. It might be electorally useful for it in Jammu and Kashmir, but it is harmful for the national integration that it professes. So it means this particular political party's action could be detrimental to national integration in long term. Second, when statements are being made by home ministers, it is very difficult to give such choices in front of people of Jammu and Kashmir. Also, there are various viable possibilities possibilities for Jammu and Kashmir's progressive, respectful and accommodative association with the rest of India, which preserve national integrity and honor the region's identity. The alliance leaders have complained about the restrictions on their campaigning, and Congress, which was in touch with alliance earlier, has now cut its ties with it. Now, what can be the conclusion? Here, the government must encourage the widest voter participation, clearest route to this being through unrestrained and freewheeling campaign that mobilizes and expresses the whole range of public opinion. So, people should be allowed to vote, think, create opinion freely. All that might be said would not be acceptable or desirable, but meaningful dialogue is essential, and elections are the best way to open up peaceful possibilities. Elections in Jammu and Kashmir can lead to participatory politics and meaningful dialogue. This is what is being expected in Jammu and Kashmir. So, this entire words that I have underlined can be used in your answer. Now, this is very important editorial. Why this editorial is important? Because in this particular editorial, Pooja Mehra have discussed, have disapproved the recent dialogue made by External Affairs Minister regarding how globalization and trade agreement of India with rest of the world have led to deindustrialization. She gave a very proper analytical perspective to all these things. So, let's discuss all these things one by one. See, what is the context of this editorial? India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has presented an ill-considered take on India's trade record in a keynote speech delivered at a dialogue on November 16. Now, what he said? He said that the economic growth that has coming from globalization is not a good enough outcome for India. It means globalization and trade agreements are not good for India, is being said by External Affairs Minister. Now, here what he said? He said an honest self-assessment of these trade and economic performance is necessary to show that costs that India has paid for its economic success are more than what it has gained. And also he said that the cost could be shown to have set off the gains that are being made by India considerably. Now, here he used a word. One such cost is deindustrialization and employment challenge, and these two things, deindustrialization and employment challenge, have been generated by the global trade. And also he talked about three important things. All these trade agreements have made India over dependent on imports. Now, these three things, third one is over dependent on import, second is employment challenge, and third is deindustrialization, was being said by minister. Now, what is important? Export led growth. He talked about export led growth. It means whatever India is having, it is an export led growth. Now, here he is right. He said that trade has delivered high economic growth for a country. It is true. Now, these are the points that you have to put in your answer. Here, first point that is being given by minister is very true, that this foreign trade has delivered high economic growth for India, is very true thing. Then, it can be seen India's record of export led growth, it cannot be discussed. That is between 1995 and 2018, India's overall export growth averaged 13.4% in dollars annually. This is very good thing. Rather, it is third best performance in the world among top 50 exporters except China and Vietnam. And this growth performance is twice the world average growth, where China's growth is just 15%, which is being seconded by Vietnam, and third is India. Also, one important paper presented by Chatterjee Subramaniam, it said that the much export contributed to GDP growth in each of the 3 decades since 1990s. This point can be used directly in your answer. Here, performance represents only limited progress relative to India's potential, which is being questioned by minister. He said that whatever performance we have is less than potential, and it is true. But it is not due to trade agreement that we are not able to achieve our potential. It is due to policy error, as is being said by Pooja Mehra. Now, here what is being said? It is true that despite the evident success, India is not a big exporter on global scale. Very important. Its share of global manufacturing export is only 1.7%, marginally less than Vietnam, which is at 1.75%. Just imagine, Vietnam, one of the smaller Southeast Asian country, has higher share of export at global scale than India. Then, strong rupee approach. Why we are lacking on export and why having more and more import? It is strong rupee approach. Now, how much of the blame for India's below potential growth can be entitled to trade agreement is discussed over here. See, India's export growth has lost momentum in recent years is a true thing. Narendra Modi government's strong rupee approach is among the chief causes that have been shown to have slowed down export. Remember, whenever your rupee appreciates, your export gets costlier, and costlier exports are not good for any economy. Here, remember, the real effective exchange rate has appreciated by about 20% since 2014. This is important, and it is not subsidy given by other countries to their exporters. It is in fact a subsidy given by Mr. Modi government to their exporters of other countries. This important point must be remembered. If imports such as holidays and higher education overseas have lived, it is because of exchange rate has made them more affordable. Why? Imports become more cheaper when your rupee appreciates. Now, studies of trade agreement made by Niti Aayog show that Indian exporters suffer logistic problems, compliance and transaction cost twice as high as other countries. This low ease of doing business is another important factor which is affecting Indian exports. In sectoral causes, you can see that reputational advantage of India's pharmaceutical exports after malfeasance fraud was exposed at some manufacturer has hurt exports as it is based on poor administration. Manufacturing. Minister is not taking due focus about the numbers. Between 1995 and 2018, India's manufacturing export in dollar has grew by on an average by 12.1%, which is twice the world average manufacturing exports. Now, this is third best performance after China and Vietnam. Even during global trade post 2012, when world exports were virtually flat, India continued to gain global market share. Its exports were growing about by 3%. But during this period, India's manufacturing export growth ranked within top 10 among 50 major exporters. Now again, we cannot say that all these things are happening and we are again blaming these trade agreements. If India's manufacturing sector finds itself in crisis since 2012, it is in large part due to policy errors inflicted by both Modi government as well as Manmohan Singh government. Policy errors are the main important reasons behind poor manufacturing sector's export season. Now this one important fact is that between fiscal year 2006 to 12, manufacturing sectors in GDP grew by a 9.5% per year, which was trade openness was at its peak in this era, and we had seen higher years of growth rate and highest number of Indians in recorded history exited the poverty in this era. What is the time period? It is 2006 to 2012. But the next 6 years, that is 2012 to 2018, manufacturing sector GDP growth rate declined to 7.4%. Why? Corruption scandals, severe banking crisis, demonetization and a badly designed goods and services tax. These are the reasons that you have to keep in mind. Now, why again? Excessive, unnecessary, unwarranted role played by Ministry of External Affairs is again one of the reasons. Why? Because there is reduction in role of Department of Economic Affairs. Openness in trade is in fact generating more and more employment, but financial positions of household and government and bank were too weak to support the economy. Now, after 2008's global financial crisis, China earned around 140 billion in export in unskilled labor intensive sectors including apparel, clothing, leather and footwear, but India did not take advantage of this opportunity and India earned just only $60 billion in low skilled exports annually. Also, employment challenge is on the account that it is being achieved through the department. Economic arguments are playing ever shrinking role. It means economic arguments or economists are not getting their due share in participating all these kinds of issues. Growth strategies, curtailed role of Department of Economic Affairs and Commerce, and most importantly unnecessary unwarranted role that is being arrogated by Ministry of External Affairs, taking too much of the economic diplomacy which is unwarranted. Trade openness versus import substitution, they are expecting that we should go for import substitution, but you can compare same thing with pre-1991 experience where we are getting inferior low quality products on the one hand and low growth rates on the other hand. So we cannot go for import substitution in the era of globalization. Also, great examples of how responsible globalization have helped India or will help India in solving multiple COVID-19 vaccines is the point in remembering. To criticize trade openness and globalization at this point is also poor timing. So, all these things are coming on the account of India's worst economic scenarios, and this is no ordinary member of Modi government's cabinet who are speaking or who is blaming trade agreement for deindustrialization. Minister must go into or must focus on the what are policy errors and try to correct them. So, in conclusion, simply India's switch to strong rupee policy in line with Prime Minister's pre-2014 election campaign led to the surge in import of goods and services preferred by non-rich Indians and a measurable loss of competitiveness in labor-intensive exports. At the same time, the disadvantageous Indian exporters have long struggled against the substantially higher logistics and other costs remain as burdensome. The speech is purely political one. Thank you very much. Have a good day.